Hey everyone, welcome. My name is Rachel Bouzaid. I am a Vedic counselor who uses Vedic astrology to help people understand their cosmic imprint and their karma and how to break cycles and overcome these obstacles. And today I'm really excited because this channel I look at celebrities' charts and break it down for you. And today we are going to look at Bella Hadid's Vedic birth chart. Um, Bella Hadid is a supermodel. She is one of many in the Hadid family, which we will talk about. But I picked her for her activism. She is a Palestinian activist. And I think during this time right now, we need people that are brave enough to stand up for what's right. And so I'm really happy to share her chart with you. So let's get into it. Here we have her birth chart pulled up. So, like I said, I'm a Vedic astrologer, and that means that this is not a Western chart. This is from the ancient Vedic system in India that came before Western astrology. It follows the actual transits in real time. So when we look at this chart, this is a North Indian version of the chart. And so we have 12 houses here that represent the 12 zodiac signs. So right here is the first house, and you can see that with this right above it, first H, that means first house, and it goes counterclockwise so that this Mars here in Cancer is her 12th and final house. All right, so right away, we can see that Bella Hadid is a Leo ascendant or Leo Lagna or Leo rising sign. So right away, we can see that she is here to be very self-expressive. She has Moon and Venus sitting on her ascendant. The first house represents your body, your personality, how you show up, and what others see. So her ascendant is in a nakshatra called Purva Phalangi. Nakshatras are lunar mansions or star constellations in the sky that take us even deeper than just the zodiac sign in Vedic astrology. Purva Phalangi is actually ruled by Venus. So it's in Leo, which is ruled by the sun, but the nakshatra itself is ruled by Venus. So it's fusing the energies of the sun and the Venus. This is her rising sign. Purva is notorious for being very self-expressive, for being very comfortable with the material, very romantic, right? It's very Venusian. People with a lot of actors and actresses have a connection to Purva Phalangi. They're really great at being on stage and being seen, but they're also kind of known for not taking things too seriously, to being really comfortable with themselves. And, sometimes they're seen as being a little bit lazy or just with their feet up on the hammock is the symbol here. So it's really it really goes along with her being a supermodel, her having her ascendant, her rising sign in Leo and Purva Phalangi. Then she has the moon and Venus here. So they're quite tight. They're only 3 degrees away from each other. So Venus and the moon are not exalted in Leo, but Venus and moon together is a really great combination. So Venus represents relationships, creativity, our love language, the material. The moon is our emotions. It's the mother. It's the subconscious. So the moon is in Purva Phalangi as well, but Venus is in a nakshatra called Magha, which is ruled by the south karmic node Ketu. So that's also really interesting that that's on her ascendant. Anytime we see Venus, which does show us relationships, in a Ketu ruled nakshatra, we always want to be a little bit on the lookout. So right away, that shows that there's going to be relationship karma because Ketu is the karmic node of separation, of moksha, of loss, of separating you from what does not serve you. It is not, and Rahu attaches you to the material. Ketu separates you. So right away, that's really interesting. And it's on her ascendant. It's on herself. So that might be a little bit intense. Magha also represents the kingdom, the lineage, royalty. There can be a sense of entitlement sometimes in Magha. But when Venus and Moon are together, it creates someone who is usually extremely creative, someone with new ideas, right? You're merging the mind and the emotions with Venus, which is incredibly creative, especially in Leo. Um, I see her also possibly being extremely emotionally intelligent, as the moon and Venus together can create someone who really understands others, can be really charming socially. And the moon is also in Purva Phalange. So again, that is ruled by Venus. So there's a lot of Venusian energy just in her body, her personality, her sense of self. She's beautiful, right? So this is like really, really checking out. So then if we go to the second house, there's a lot going on as well. She has three planets here in the second house. So the second house represents the material. So right, the second sign in the zodiac is Taurus. So what does Taurus represent? It represents the material assets, financial security, emotional groundedness. In the second house, we look for early childhood. It represents the early childhood experiences, your financial assets, but it also represents your voice, the throat chakra, your speech and communication. It can show riders here as well. So let's look at this. She has three planets here. So her first house ruler, right? She's a Leo ascendant. So her first house ruler is the sun. So we always want to see, one of the first things we look at is, where is the first house ruler? Well, it's in the second house. So her sun is here. It's in Virgo, in Hasta Nakshatra. So, right, the sun is her ego. It's her soul's essence. It's who she thinks she is. Okay. So Hasta is ruled by the moon, and it represents, someone who is not only emotionally intelligent. It's in Virgo. Virgo is a sign of healing, a sign of service, a sign of purity. It's feminine. It's grounded, though. It's on the earthly plane. So she is someone who, Hosta is known for doing the hard work, getting their hands dirty, to do what it takes to get things done. Virgo is a logical sign as well, right? And it's in the house, the second house. So honestly, her Virgo is a powerhouse right now. Mercury is exalted in its own sign in Virgo. It's in Uttara Phalange. It's fully exalted at 15 degrees in Hasta, but it's still exalted. It's in its own sign. But something really interesting here, right, is her Rahu. So Rahu represents the North Karmic node. It shows us what our soul is attached to mastering this life. Okay. So like I said, the second house is also financial security. Her soul is here to master financial and material wealth. There's something going on with her family of origin, perhaps, and her voice. So the sun and Rahu are pretty tight. I mean, they're within 8 degrees. And then Mercury is also there. So when Rahu is with something, it magnifies the planets that it's with. So it's intensifying the sun, it's intensifying Mercury. Rahu is said to do really well in Virgo. It's said to do really well. So actually, this is pretty ideal for Rahu. It's also in the second house of the material, right? Rahu is attaching us to the material. So when it is in a house like the second house or the third house, it tends to do really well. It's also enhancing her sun. The problem is Rahu is also a malefic. So Rahu with the sun, right? The sun also represents the father and the ego. So it usually creates some issues with the father in some way and with the sense of self. Um, so that's really interesting. And I want to do maybe like a quick little bio too, to just kind of like go over some of the things we do know about her. Her Mercury, like I said, it's here with Rahu and the sun. So I'm seeing someone who's a powerful communicator, someone with a powerful voice, perhaps, someone with a very strong father. He might have been authoritative, but I'm seeing a lot of karma maybe with early childhood as well. Mercury also represents the nervous system, the lungs. So I also want to look at that with her. So before we get completely into it, we've seen her ascendant, her rising sign. We've seen her moon placement, and we've already seen her sun, her Rahu, the karmic node. And then so K2 is always going to be directly opposing Rahu. Here it's in Pisces. K2 is also considered the second ruler of Pisces and does really well because Pisces is so esoteric and spiritual, just like K2. and it's conjunct with Saturn. So we're already seeing that this eighth house is very karmic as well, because Saturn is a heavy karma planet. And so wherever it sits, and it's conjoined with K2, another very hard karmic planet. So there's going to be a lot going on as well with the eighth house matters. Eighth house is death and rebirth, personal transformation. It's secrets, betrayal, control. But really quick, before we get too into it, I do want to just go over a little bit of a bio for her. So Bella Hadid was born on October 9th, 1996, and she is a top supermodel along with her sister, Gigi Hadid. Her mother was a model, a Dutch formal model. Her father, Mohammed Hadid, is a Palestinian real estate developer who came to the US as a Palestinian refugee. Her older sister, Gigi, and her younger brother, Anwar, are also models, but she has been an actively open, proud Muslim. She began modeling at age 16, left Parsons School of Design, where she studied photography to focus on her career. She then signed with IMG Models in 2014 and has worked with major brands like Dior, Fendi, Victoria's Secret, and she earned the Model of the Year award. She co-founded the non-alcoholic adaptogenic beverage Kin Euphorics. She also struggles with chronic Lyme disease, being diagnosed in 2012, which forced her to give up her dream of competing professionally in horseback riding. She's had high-profile relationships, most notably with The Weeknd, and lately she's been linked to Adon Banuelos. Her stance on Palestine, she's been outspoken advocate for the Palestinian people, referencing her family's history and her father's experience as a refugee. She has used her large social media platform to post about the systematic oppression and humility that Palestinians face, and has participated in pro-Palestinian demonstrations, stating that her activism has cost her career opportunities and friendships. But she's made it clear that her stance is not rooted in religious bias and does not include the harm of a Jewish person. And this is purely just about Palestinian liberation. She was 16 years old when she was diagnosed with Lyme disease in 2012, which I want to look at. And we don't know exactly about her personal relationships, right? But we know that her parents divorced in 2000. She was quite young, and she's been open about her childhood, noting that she missed growing up within a Muslim community after moving away from her father's Palestinian side because of the divorce. She also has shared in the past that she felt uncomfortable in her father's grand, unpersonalized homes. Remember, he's a real estate developer that has done quite well. And she has revealed that she has regrets of having a nose job at age 14. Yeah, that's really young. She's publicly expressed regret about this nose job, and she has shared that she really felt extracted from her Palestinian family, which caused her a lot of sadness. And she describes her mother as a friend, but also there is a report that she stated that she doesn't trust her mother anymore. There's no follow-up on that. But let's just check all of this out on the chart. So one thing that's like really coming up for me is I want to look at her Lyme disease. How can we see this in her chart? So we didn't really finish, looking at all the planets yet, but we started to see her Mercury is afflicted with Rahu. Rahu is a malefic planet. It will do damage. Mercury represents the nerves. I'm pretty sure Lyme disease is nerve pain. And then she has Saturn here with K2, another karmic malefic. Um, and that causes, Saturn is the planet in medical astrology for chronic pain, joint pain, bones. So, right, she has a chronic disease. Um, Another thing here, her Mars is almost completely debilitated in Cancer in Ashleisha, Nakshatra. Mars is completely debilitated at 28 degrees of Cancer in Ashleisha. So this is really quite a debilitation. There's no parivartana or exchanging of signs to cancel out these effects. So that can also cause issues with the blood. Mars is inflammation, it's the blood. In medical astrology, it's debilitated. And then I also like looking at the sixth house because the sixth house represents health. It represents your health, your physical health. It is the house of work, day-to-day routine. It is the house of service, obstacles, enemies, competitors. But a lot of times we can look at the physical health in this house. So it's in Capricorn. It has Neptune and Uranus, the outer planets. So I'm not surprised either here. Neptune, can cause some issues. It also in the sixth house can reveal someone that will do better with natural remedies for health. So I wonder if she's taking a look at more holistic options. And Uranus, it's it's also retrograde here, but Uranus shows us where sudden changes will happen, radical sudden changes in the chart. It's in Capricorn in Uttara Ashada, which is, which spans actually Sagittarius and the very beginning of Capricorn, but it's in Capricorn, so it's ruled by Saturn. So there's a victory element here. Uttara Ashada is attributed to the final victory. And we always want to look at where the house ruler is. So when we see here, it's ruled by Saturn in Capricorn, right? So where is Saturn? Saturn is in the eighth house here. When you see the sixth house ruler in the eighth house, remember the eighth house represents personal transformation and deaths and rebirths. It can be literal deaths. But a lot of times when you see the sixth house ruler in the eighth, there's going to be a personal transformation in physical health issues. And right, there's Saturn. Saturn is chronic disease, chronic issues. So I see the Lyme disease actually already in her chart. So that's really, really interesting. I also just have so much, my heart really goes out to her. I was actually diagnosed with a chronic autoimmune disease at 12 years old. So I really understand that. Let's see, it happened in 2012. We don't know the exact day, but if we're looking here at transits, if you see where I'm circling, the dasha periods, June 4th, 2012 started a period where it was a period of Venus and Ketu. So she was running a Venus period and the subdasha was Ketu. So right, like remember what I said about Venus? It's in Magha, a Ketu ruled nakshatra. So, she hasn't really, we don't know much about her relationships, but it seems like there has been some relationship difficulty. Kate, it's ruled by Ketu, which separates. So there may be, she may be dating guys that, kind of have some royalty or special status to them because it's Magha, the kingdom. But K2 is also the planet of separation and loss. And so she was in this Venus K2 period when she got diagnosed with Lyme disease. Well, guess where K2 is? It's here in the eighth house with Saturn, right? This planet that rules her sixth house of health and chronic illnesses. The eighth house is personal transformation and death and rebirth. So I could see how, right, Venus is on her sense of self. There was literally like a death and rebirth for her that period. So that, yeah, my heart just really goes out to her on this, because she did recently post struggling with it again on her Instagram, I think a week or two ago. So Bella, if you're listening to this, my heart is with you. I hope you feel better. So let's look at some of the other things on her chart. So we already talked about her second house. There's definitely a huge karma around, seeking material wealth, feeling secure financially, but also her voice. I think there's definitely something going on with the father. I don't know them personally, so I don't want to say too much, but there's definitely just ego stuff, her feeling of self. And I know, right, she did say she felt separated from her father and didn't really know how to handle some of, his career choices and how it made her feel in his, very expensive, lavish homes, but she felt separated from him after the divorce. So another thing here we can see is that her fourth house is in Scorpio and it has Pluto in it. Pluto is a very powerful outer planet that shouldn't be ignored. Pluto represents control, power. Wherever you see Pluto, you see lessons of control and power. The fourth house represents the mother, the home, and the family, and the inner emotions, the heart space. It's a moksha house. It's a really important house. It's also a Kendra house because Kendra houses are 1, 4, 7, and 10. This diamond here, they're the power houses. So a lot of times when you see Pluto in the fourth house, you see control, manipulation, issues, power, struggles, a lot of times with the mother, because the fourth house is the mother, or within the family itself. It's in Scorpio, so which also it represents her heart space, which Scorpio, my favorite teacher calls it the internal boil. It's when fire meets water, literally. And there's already control issues around emotions in Scorpio, and Pluto is just magnifying that. Um, she also may feel like her mother is Scorpio, like there's something a little bit mysterious with her. She needs to control emotions. Um, so that's interesting. Her, the fourth house ruler, the planet that rules Scorpio is Mars. So where is Mars? It's debilitated in the 12th house of loss endings. A lot of times the 12th house is more, I feel it's more physical separation. Then I view the eighth house a lot of times as more emotional, but it could be emotional separation as well. So there's some sort of feeling for her, whether it was an actual physical separation from her mother or an emotional one, but it feels like a loss to her. And what's making this fourth house even more tricky is that the fourth house ruler is debilitated and it's in Ashleisha. Ashleisha is a nakshatra in Cancer, so it's extremely emotionally sensitive, but it's a tough one because it's ruled by Mercury. So it's fusing the energies of Moon, which rules Cancer, and Mercury, which rules Ashleisha. So it's extremely emotionally intelligent, but it's it's a nakshatra of bonding and binding. Um, so it's like the poison that can either kill you or save you, right? Like too much of it kills you, like an antibiotic, but just enough will save your life. But Mars and Ashleisha in particular, because Mars is an action planet. So, right, it's debilitated when it's in Cancer because Cancer is not actionable. It wants to feel, it wants to nurture, and it wants to feel homey and comfortable, whereas Mars wants to act. And it's when it's in Ashleisha specifically, I do feel like that action energy gets channeled more towards emotions. So I see a lot in charts with people with Mars and Ashleisha. There's something going on with manipulation, emotional manipulation. It's usually not intentional. It's a karmic pattern where Mars and Ashleisha can is a it's a pattern. It's a tendency to use emotional manipulation of others for your own emotional safety. So, and it can be quite tricky. Um, so and I'm already seeing here, not to go too fast, but the ninth house represents the father. It represents your belief systems, the father, the gurus, your teachers, higher learning, spiritual education. But I'm just thinking about the father and the mother right now. And so I'm looking at the ninth house. It's also ruled by Mars because it's Aries. So she also feels a loss of her father, and it's debilitated. So I'm seeing something going on with both parents here. Um, Venus with the moon is really helping, I think, the relationship with the mother. Um, but Rahu with the sun representing the father, and then the second house ruler or the ninth house ruler being in the 12th of loss, I'm definitely seeing some struggles happening with the father. Um, but I have to also point out, as a Leo ascendant, Mars actually acts as a benefic planet. So for Cancer and Leo, Mars acts this way because it rules a Kendra house and a Dharma house. So instead of it acting as a malefic planet like it is, it actually acts as a functional benefic, or a functional malefic. Um, so it's not completely all negative here, but Mars is debilitated. So it's interesting too that it's directly opposing Uranus. It's not close in degrees, but Mars and Uranus can create sudden events, sudden accidents. So that's really interesting. So we've looked at her parents. What is a really great placement here is her fifth house. So we have Jupiter here. It's in its own sign in Sagittarius. Jupiter in the fifth house, the fifth house is the house of Leo, actually, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Leo's the fifth zodiac. So all things Leo, the creative house of self-expression, being on stage. It's also, we see people, we see actors having strong celebrities, film directors having strong fifth houses. It's also the house of children, which in Vedic astrology is considered the greatest creative project of a human being. So sometimes when Jupiter is in the house of children, because Jupiter represents children, it can cancel out children, but not always. So that's also something to consider. But it's in its own sign, it's in Purva Ashada. And so it also is a house, by the way, of education. So it can create it's also the house of past life credit. So we see someone's past life credit. So the fifth house ruler being in its own sign, she has a great past life credit for her to explore her creativity and her creative self. Um, it's in Purvashada Nakshatra, which is also ruled by Venus. So there's just a lot of Venusian energy here with her. Purvashada is the nakshatra that kind of represents what people think about Sagittarius, adventurous, noble, here to seek the truth. But because it's ruled by Venus, there's a very creative aspect to these types of Sagittarius people. And it's also interested in purifying and water. Uh, so it's right. It doesn't surprise me that she is bold in her communication. She has a really strong second house. And then she has Jupiter in Purvashada in the fifth, where the fifth house is what you express to others when it's like being on stage, your public persona. And it's in Purvashada. It's truth seeking. It's victorious. It's here to root out the evil. It's a very dharmic, very righteous placement. So she's definitely here to be an advocate, to speak up for what's right, to speak up for what she believes in. Um, her third house, which is also a house of communications, what you share with the media, especially the media. So if you have a social media presence, third house is something you want to look at. Third house is Gemini. It's third zodiac, so it's your hobbies, your interests, exploring, short travels, communication. But it's more about what you share with others. So it's in Libra, and Venus. Which is ruled by Venus, which is in her first house. So she is directly influencing that third house. So that's also really, it checks out for, what we see with her. Libra is also Venusian. So, when she communicates, she's diplomatic. Libra is a diplomatic sign. It's also justice seeking, right? So all this is really, really checking out. We did talk about her sixth house already, her 11th house. So that represents the spouse, relationships, one-on-one relationships, business partnerships, contractual agreements. It's in Aquarius, and the ruler of Aquarius is Saturn here in that eighth house. So like I said, I was already seeing her Venus was ruled by K2. So that's kind of my teachers taught me that you want three of something before you make a claim on a chart. So the second claim I would make with relationship karma for her is definitely the seventh house ruler being in the eighth house of death and rebirth. It can also be the house of scandals, secrets, and betrayal. Um, so, you know, I don't know how her relationship is currently going, but I know that, we already know her breakup with the weekend. So, yeah, there's definitely a lot of lessons here for her this life in her relationships. Um, there will be a lot of personal transformation in them. So, her eighth house here, right? We already kind of talked about it, K2 and Saturn. So K2 represents what she has already mastered or already really spent a lot of time on in past lives. So it's in Pisces, in Uttara Bhadrapada, a really intense placement. It's in Pisces, very spiritual, but it's tough. It's represented by the funeral cot. So it's connected to endings of cycles, endings of whatever needs to end so that you can start again, right? And Aries is the beginning of a new completion. So eighth house matters too. Eighth house is the Kundalini house, the house of esoteric knowledge, of hidden knowledge, of, we see a lot of astrologers with strong eighth houses, people that, work in spiritual and esoteric modalities. So she's kind of already been there, done that. However, it's here in Saturn, or here with Saturn. So when Saturn and K2 are together, it shows a house that will cause a lot of difficulty. So I don't know, what's going on in her life or what's happened, but the eighth house with K2 and Saturn there, Saturn's also retrograde, so it's really going inward. House of personal transformation. That's kind of, I view the eighth house as the toughest house on the chart, and to have K2 and Saturn there is quite difficult. So this is not easy. Because Saturn brings heavy karma with it. It brings restriction. It can bring melancholy, sadness, responsibility. It's in Pisces. Saturn and Jupiter are not friends in astrology. However, it's in Uttara Bhadrapada, and guess what? Saturn rules Uttara Bhadrapada. Sorry, I'm just realizing my head is here. So I'm talking here about this eighth house with Ketu and Saturn. Um, so I could actually see Saturn doing quite well. But K2 is going to also bring some difficulty there. And I can see her having or needing to have a lot of personal transformations this life. Um, Her ninth house here, we talked about that. It's in Aries, and that Mars, which rules it, is in that 12th house of spirituality, foreign places, and loss and endings. So there's definitely some sort, right? She already talked about being physically um, like taken away from her father after the divorce. So there it is right there in that chart. She was physically separated. Um, but it can also point to someone who is very spiritual because the ninth house is higher education and spiritual learning, foreign lands. So is the 12th house. And so she actually could have great experiences if she pursues spiritual endeavors. Again, Mars is debilitated, so that's not so helpful. But again, Mars is a functional malefic for her as a Leo ascendant. Um, Her career house, her reputation house here, the 10th house. It is in Taurus, represented by this number 2, which is ruled by Venus. So it's showing us that her career is influenced by herself, literally, right? That checks out too because she is a model. So not surprising there. And if we wanted to look further, we can look at the D10 chart to see more about her career or her D9 chart. So, but we're not going to look at, there's so many charts in Vedic astrology we could look at, but that's kind of all that it really tells us. I do see that, Saturn is aspecting her 10th house here. It does do well. It's, Saturn is fully exalted in Libra, which is ruled by Venus. So sometimes Saturn can also do well in Taurus, because Taurus is very grounding, as a sign itself, just like Saturn wants to be. But it can create, delays in her career or, things like that. A little bit of hardship. Um, Saturn is also, directly opposing her second. And so the seventh aspect, and then 8, 9, 10, it's also aspecting that fifth house, which could be children. It could be her creative outlets as well, her expression. So, Saturn is actually, aspecting 4 of her planets, which is adding some hardship to those planets and their houses. Um, but you know, definitely she is here to to share herself. Um, so that checks out. But also, oh, right here, we're looking at the 11th house. The 11th house represents one's desires, just like the third house, but it's more about future desires, long-term goals. It's also wealth from career. So you can see someone's, material wealth in this house as well. It's in Gemini, which is the ruler is Mercury, and Mercury is in the second house of financial assets. So when you see the 11th house ruler connected to the second house, or vice versa, you see someone who has material wealth karmically in their chart, right? And she also has Sun, Rahu, Mercury in the second house of wealth. So she definitely has material wealth going for her, and uh, probably fulfilling her desires. But again, and then here we have that for the 12th house. Also, when Mars is in the 12th house is your subconscious mind, your fears as well. So a lot of times when Mars is here and it's debilitated, or just Mars in general, it can create a restless mind, someone who has really struggles, keeping the mind calm, and might have trouble sleeping. And then, like I said, Mars just being debilitated could create issues with inflammation or blood things medically. So, yeah. Let me see if I missed anything. Um, she is interested in horses. That's her passion. And so I kind of wanted to see that. The sixth house also represents pets and animals. And a lot of times when Neptune is in the sixth house, it can create someone who really loves animals. Um, specifically, I was looking for Ashwini, which is an nakshatra that's very connected to horses, but I don't see that in her chart. If we wanted to look at when her parents got divorced in 2000, I'm not sure if it would have been in this Venus or Mars, right? Because it goes until October 3rd, 2000. So if that was the case, Venus here is the first house of self. Mars rules both the father, and the house of the mother. It's in the 12th house of loss. So I could see it being that checking out during her Venus Mars period when that divorce happened, because usually when there is 12 houses between them, the dasha periods, there's some sort of loss that happens in that time period. Plus, literally, we're talking about the 12th house in her chart of loss, and the ruler is of the parents, both mom and dad. So yeah, I hope you all find this interesting. I really, Bella Hadid has done really great things. I'm really excited for whatever comes next for her, and I wish her well, and I hope she heals. And I absolutely believe she can cure Lyme disease. I would highly recommend holistic medicine for her based on her chart. And yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments. But it was really, really fun sharing her chart with you all. And I hope you have a great day. If you're interested in any of my services or booking a reading with me, check out my website with the link in the below. And I hope to see you soon. Namaste.